Hi there, it's Sarah from Inspire Tarot. Welcome to the channel. Let's see what message Spirit has for us today. I'm going to use the Spirit Animal Wisdom deck by Katie Jane Wright and Nikki Strange. It's really sweet. I think we all love animals. So yeah, it's a nice colourful deck. So let's see which card Spirit wants us to see today. So we have field mouse, elephant, eagle, so yeah, field mouse card talks about success. Believe in yourself and dare to dream big. So we all have dreams. I know I've had dreams all through my life, and some of them I kind of went confidently towards and others I didn't. And I felt like I've had to do a lot of healing in order to get to a stage where I can express myself. I still find it difficult and uncomfortable to express myself, but I know that it's something that the Spirit wants me to do, to learn to be more authentic and to come out. So this is the reason for this channel. So yeah, we need to believe in ourselves and dare to dream big, because obviously when we believe that we're mere mortals, we have this memory that we're divine, and we want to kind of expand until we come back into oneness. So whenever we feel small, we have this innate need to expand, and it's not really in the way that we think. We tend to think we need to fluff up our individual character, but really that's taking us down the wrong path. But even if we go that way, then we're always learning, we're always being realigned. So yeah, we really do have to follow what lights us up and follow our passion, follow what we feel called to do unapologetically. And yeah, we often feel as if we have to do lots of healing in order to be able to do these things. I know I certainly did. So yeah, we do have to believe in ourselves, but we do have to advocate for ourselves. And it can be challenging when we have self-sabotaging patterns within us. It can feel as if we're taking one step forward and two steps back, but we are always progressing, because consciousness never goes backwards. And we do have to embody the divine within. It's kind of our personal responsibility to accept the Spirit's help, and to let the Spirit in. We have to do this. So yeah, we need to just surrender to the process and ask for what it is we want, the expansion that we want. And the Spirit is always going to be helping us and guiding us. And yeah, if we don't believe in ourselves, then no one else will, because our outer world is a reflection of our inner. So it has to come from within. And every time we feel tempted to want something external, then we have to pull it back into the mind and remember that the control panel is within for us. The kingdom of heaven is within, and the outside is just the effect. So yeah, okay, so the elephant card, ground your energies and emotions deep into the earth. So yeah, I kind of think of this very much as bringing our emotional state and bringing our issues back within to our own self, and remembering that all issues are really just perceptual problems. Everything is a perceptual issue. It's very tempting all the time to see that the problem is outside of ourselves, but that's the setup of the ego. That's the setup, that's the mechanism that's designed to trap us and keep us confused, thinking that the problem or the escape is outside of ourselves, and it's not, and we're very programmed to believe this. So it's just remembering over and over again that we need to come back to ourselves and feel the feelings that are coming up without judging them, without resisting them, and just keep going. And sometimes it may be that we need to sit down and take some quiet time, or we may need to go for a walk or do some yoga or look after ourselves better, take time with friends, we'll always know what we need. And I think when we're in a distorted place, it can be the opposite of what we want. But the Spirit knows what we need. Whenever we feel like we want to withdraw and move away, then we need some time for ourselves so that we can reintegrate again. The Eagle card is about your ancestors are holding space for you to heal your past. So this is something that beautiful I've seen in my own life, because when I look back at my own childhood, even though we know it's not real, it felt difficult. It felt like I was born into a family where I didn't belong, and they couldn't understand me or see me at all. Now that is a reflection, I know now, of the fact that I couldn't see myself, and that I'd chosen this challenge for this lifetime. So nothing was really going wrong. I'd chosen something that was really challenging. And I had a really difficult relationship with both of my parents, probably until I was late 30s. And I didn't realise that my thoughts and beliefs, that the problem was outside of me, were causing a problem to be outside of me on repeat. And then obviously I came across A Course in Miracles and various other teachings and learned that we need to change within. And I found that just forgiving generally, forgiving everyone and everything, seemed to clear the problems and the patterns that I had with parents and family. It was quite difficult for me to focus specifically on forgiving them, because at the time it felt so real. But I just focused on forgiving generally and non-judgment, and it did clear the situation I had with my family, and now we get on really easily. So it was definitely an inside job, and it was quite strange how it changed, because it doesn't feel like, when the change happens, it feels as if it's always been that way. Because we're just living in a dream that's our own energetic frequency kind of projected outwards. And so when we changes, it changes gradually over time. And it's not really until we fall back and see things that have happened in the past and think, oh gosh, I remember when my consciousness was at that level all the time. So when we're leveling up and we experience challenges and things, and we feel as if we fall back to that darker place where we're in a lower level of consciousness, and then we remember, oh gosh, I felt like this all the time, and I'm so glad that I don't feel like this all the time. And it took me quite a few years to actually shift out of having quite a low frequency as my default frequency. And I noticed that when I was a parent, when my kids were younger, and I still believed that my parents were judging me harshly all the time, that would play out with my children as well. You know, they were strict with my children, and they were strict and judging of me. And then as I changed over time and became more forgiving of myself and them, my children had a much easier time. They were much softer and more gentle with my children. So I kind of like to see that as how we heal, in that we kind of just shift to a different timeline. And I know that we think of ancestral healing as something solidly real, but it's just the frequency changes, and then it's hard to explain even how it works, because it's so hard to quantify. But yeah, the physical experience or the perceptual experience seems very different when we change. It's just much softer and more gentle. So yeah, and then we kind of have to remember that there really, strictly speaking, isn't a past. There's only ever the now moment. And if you want to kind of plonk it on the timeline, then every now moment is slightly more healed than the last every now moment. So we're just recycling the same thing over and over again, but just with a little bit more expanded awareness and a bit less darkness and a bit less shadow. So yeah, it's interesting. Which of the cards would you like to show us, Spirit, please? Have that one. The Ladybird. All of your manifesting positive thoughts and visualizations have been heard. So yeah, this is true. Everything that we think, everything that we believe, everything that we assume, is outpictured for us. So when we're creating things that we don't want, this can seem like a horrific burden. But the more we create things, the more we change inside in our mind, the more we can see that this is like, wow, this is an amazing power that we've been given. You know, we just need to change internally and then the whole world changes. And that's quite some insane power for us to understand on our human level. And I think we've all done affirmations and things in the past. But when they go against our beliefs very strongly, it's just going to flush up a lot of darkness for us to look at, which is fine. But yeah, when we radically change our beliefs and thoughts, then it is definitely going to flush up a lot of stuff, and we really do need to focus on comforting ourselves through those difficult feelings, because the way we feel is more important than the things that we want to get. And we tend to think it's the other way around. We think that if we get something, then we'll feel better. But really, when we feel better, we don't really feel like we need to get things, because we just feel content with where we are. But yeah, everything is always heard by the universe. The universe is just always manifesting our concept over and over. And the more we purify our thoughts and understand what the truth is, and kind of just focus on our purpose. Our purpose is to purify our thinking over and over until it becomes our kind of eternally expressed state. Dear, move these across. Approach the situation with a light heart. This is a brilliant one, because I think on the whole I'm quite light-hearted these days. I've always been quite light-hearted, but I can also be very serious. You know, when we feel a lot of heaviness and we really feel as though the world is real, it can feel very challenging. But obviously this world is completely absurd. The prospect that God would create a world like this, that's like a very complicated setup, and then that we would try and find peace and happiness within it from a dualistic perspective, that is a kind of funny. I've seen some really funny things on Facebook recently that have just had me in hysterics. And we do have to laugh at the absurdity of the world, because it is completely cuckoo, really. So yeah, but I think this card doesn't necessarily just mean to see everything with a light heart as in funny, but just to understand it's our guilt that makes things seem so heavy and difficult in life. Our guilt and fear. And when we don't have that guilt and fear, when we release the guilt and fear, we tend to be more compassionate and more tolerant with people. And I think this card means that as well, that we can give everyone the benefit of the doubt and understand that everyone's doing their best. I think we have a tendency to think that, you know, we kind of know it all and that other people are the problem. But really, it's the other way around. If we're seeing us, the other people as the problem and not realizing it's ourselves, then the problem is within us. And the spirit is always wanting us to bring it back to ourselves, to remind us that we're the control panel and that's where the power is. Yeah, and we can just slow down and smell the roses, because not everything is one big rush. Sloth. So yeah, on the back of what I've just said, sometimes we do need to take time to recalibrate, reset and recharge. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable to be in these places and spaces, because we feel we're often on the go and we're kind of busy, because we avoid slowing down, because when we slow down, that's when we really have to sit with ourselves. But quite often, if we're not aware that we need to rest and we're kind of in this busyness, we will burn out. And our life will teach us that we do need to slow down and we need to recalibrate. And often that's when our most important work is being done, when we're resting and just composing and integrating, and we're not constantly distracted. This kind of reminds me of when we're sick. It's like we just need to rest and be gentle with ourselves. We need to focus on healing and not beat ourselves up about it. And I think the more healthy we are, the more we realise that we need to have a mix of doing and being and resting. But some of us can be so out of tune with ourselves, or fall out of tune with ourselves, that we don't realise we're not tuned enough. These cards are really beautiful. Have another one, please, Spirit. Go for that one. The hair. It says, take time to make clear decisions, bring awareness and light to the situation. Oops. Wibbling. So yeah, I'm looking at this one. The time part it's kind of jumping out to me as not important. But we need to get back into clarity of mind to make decisions. Whenever we get back to clarity of minds, we can be very spontaneous. It's almost like we're aware that time doesn't really exist when we're in that state. So we need to just come back to our right mind before we progress with things. But then again, it doesn't matter if we kind of move forward with something, because there's always a lesson in it. And I love that little saying, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And when you learn, you always win. So yeah, to come inwards and decide just to realign with clarity. And then you can make a decision. And slowing down does cut out the ego's noise and clutter, and we can align back with the spirit, and then we can see things from a more expanded perspective. How often do we get upset about something and feel as if the world's over, and then we might have a cry, or a day goes by and then you can't even get back into that state of being where the problem exists. It's just gone and you can't even really remember. And at the time we thought it was so real, the problem, but then when we've left it, it just seems so absurd. And we can get into some really challenging states where it feels like issues are very real and problems are very real, but they're not. They're all just perceptual issues. And the spirit just wants to remind us over and over that clarity comes from being right-minded. Panda. Balance. Ask how to bring balance to the situation and into your heart. So this kind of ties in a little bit with the sloth card, in that life is always reminding us to bring balance. If we do something to excess, then we'll start to suffer. The only thing that we really want to do to excess is follow the spirit, and we can't really do that to excess, because that's always right-minded. When we think of excess, it's usually doing something unhealthy or following the ego, and then we're just kind of seduced in the wrong direction. So we need to bring balance into our heart first before we can bring it to the situation. Oh, these two. Oh, 3 cards have jumped out. Let's have these two. As soon as they're on the table. Tiger talks about divine timing, and good things come to those who wait. So quite often we think that we want things, but we have to understand that if we don't have the things that we want, it's because we're not really ready for them. And if we did have them, we wouldn't be able to hold on to them. And I think this can be quite difficult, because the ego is always kind of fixated on getting, and fixated on the future, and fixated on the next best thing. But really we have to accept that spirit knows what's right for us now, and that what is right for us now is leading us to the things we want. We're always growing, but we also need to have a gratitude and acceptance for where we are and what we've got now. And if we can tap into that state, then we actually do feel very content to turn away from the ego, always wanting more, always wanting something else. That's essentially the very definition of hell, is wanting to be in a state or doing something that we don't have. So it's always coming back to that remembrance that we don't need anything, because that feeling of oneness is within, in the remembrance that we are everything, that we don't need anything. So it's essentially putting our focus back in a different direction and understanding that the more we heal, the more we can expand and experience the life experiences and things that we want. But quite often what we think we want comes from a place of distortion. You know, what we tend to want is, our ego wants something that doesn't trigger us, and the spirit wants the things that trigger us, because the spirit knows that our healing is through those triggers. But we don't want to feel that pain. So I think if we can just accept that everything is coming and just surrender, when we drop the resistance, then the things and the experiences that we want, they do come sooner when we kind of just surrender. But we do have to develop trust to be more comfortable with that surrender. And that leads me into the last card, which is Swan, Graceful Transformation. Soften your heart and find your flow. And I think, yeah, so from the ego's perspective, there's always this tendency towards striving and thinking we need to become something, when really the process is about unbecoming. It's all about letting go, dropping back into that gentleness, that kind of relief of knowing that what we're striving for, we already are. And just feel that for a moment. It's just let go of everything that you think you need, think you have to do, and just realize that you don't have to do it and you don't need it, because you already are it. And it's just a really nice understanding to just dial back and then just remember that this is the journey of undoing, of unbecoming. So yeah, the spiritual journey is strange in that way, because it's antithetical to the direction that you think you're going. You're going in the opposite direction of what the ego thinks. And this is why the undoing can seem quite painful. But the more we accept the stages and the progress we make, every time we experience some humbling experience, we're actually moving closer to the light. We're cleaning the darkness out of our minds. Yeah. So the more we can accept where we are and just love where we are and love what's happening, the better it is. So yeah, I think that was a sweet and inspiring reading today from the Spirit. I love you all. I'll see you again. Bye.